Good morning. My name is Keats Meyer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Madison Square Park Conservancy. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all here this morning for a virtual tour of City in the Grass with artist Leonardo Drew and Chief Curator and Curator of Contemporary Art at the North Carolina Museum of Art, Linda Doherty. Madison Square Park has remained open throughout the pandemic. We take great pride in being a place where people can come together for respite and reflection and relaxation, families, children, people passing through, workers, and importantly, parks, I think all over the country take great pride in being a place where democratic action can happen. It's a deep part of our American history. And we certainly have played that role in this time in the last 6 months, and we're proud of that. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items to mention. If you have a question at any time, please type it into the chat function. There will be time for questions and answers later on in the program, and your questions will be addressed then. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Brooke Kamen-Rappaport, our Deputy Director, and Martin Friedman, Chief Curator.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Keats, and thank you all for joining us today virtually to travel to North Carolina to see Leonardo Drew's first public art project, City in the Grass, commissioned by Madison Square Park Conservancy and on view in New York from June 3rd through December 15th, 2019, and now installed at the Anne and Jim Goodnight Museum Park, the 164-acre outdoor site at the North Carolina Museum in Raleigh. We will also see the museum's indoor exhibition, Leonardo Drew, Making Chaos Legible, today. Before I introduce Leonardo and Linda Doherty, I'd like to thank our colleagues, Dana Klein and Hannah Sturz, for their work on this program, as well as Luke Mahaffey and Laura Finnan in North Carolina, and Melissa Diaz in the Drew studio. We should also thank members of our Art Council who initially suggested this virtual program. Madison Square Park Conservancy commissions contemporary artists to realize public art projects on our 6.2-acre site. We heed artists in their work and are deeply conscious of the responsibility of how the art program's mission coheres with accessibility for all park goers. The Conservancy stands with protesters and citizens in the Black Lives Matter movement and condemns lethal injustice and systemic racism. We honor the names and memory of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Eric Garner, and so many others. It's now a great pleasure for me to introduce our speakers today. Leonardo Drew grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. He received a BFA from Cooper Union and lives and works in Brooklyn. Visiting Leonardo's cavernous studio is extraordinary because of the constant layering and ongoing work in every possible space. The walls, the floor, and tabletops are all activated with sculpture. His work is in distinguished public and private collections, including the Brooklyn Museum, the Hirshhorn, ICA Boston, the Metropolitan Museum, Paris Art Museum Miami, Tate, and the Walker. Recently, his work has been acquired by Crystal Bridges, the DeYoung in San Francisco, Facebook, Smart Museum at the University of Chicago, and SF MoMA. Leonardo's mid-career survey Existed was on view at the Blaffer Gallery at the University of Houston in 2009. In December of 2019, he installed a dynamic project that transformed the expansive lobby space at the Hammer Museum in Los Angeles. He was awarded the Joyce Alexander Wien Artist Prize by the Studio Museum in Harlem in 2011. He is represented by Gallery Lalong in New York, Anthony Meyer Fine Arts in San Francisco, Tally Dunn Gallery in Dallas, and Pearl Lam in Shanghai and Hong Kong. Hi, Leonardo.
Hi.
Linda Dougherty is the chief curator and curator of contemporary art at the North Carolina Museum of Art, where she is currently organizing exhibitions of contemporary art and developing artist projects for the museum park. She was a curator at the Phillips Collection, a research associate at the National Gallery, and a research assistant at the National Museum of American Art in Washington. She holds a BA from Wesleyan and an MA from Williams. So we are grateful to Linda, to the North Carolina Museum of Art Director Valerie Hillings for their enthusiasm for the project, and to Director Betsy Bradley and Curator Ryan Dennis at the Mississippi Museum of Art in Jackson, where City in the Grass will open next month. Hannah, could we have some slides? Start our slides, please. So here are several slides of the process in constructing City in the Grass in Leonardo's studio, where he often worked on the floor to build this piece. Over his years as an artist, Leonardo has incorporated worn raw cotton, oxidized metal, corroding canvas, torn paper, and burned or treated wood, materials often associated with oppression and urban decay. And here, Leonardo brought colorful sand mixed with mastic to the aluminum surface of each undulating section to realize the exaggerated patterning of a carpet. And he added a collage element of 3 wood towers and a mosaic that you see here that formed the cityscape in his work. Next slide, please. Here is the artist with the team installing the project in sections in Madison Square Park. Leonardo will tell you that his hope for City in the Grass is to degrade, for the project to degrade in plain sight, to succumb to weather and to use by the public. Thanks. And here are views of the work: a sprawling, undulating, 103 foot long by 30 feet wide sculpture with a richly textured surface where Leonardo built up layer on layer of material. And the public intuitively took to this work, just as the artist had anticipated. And now City in the Grass has taken on a new site in North Carolina where new audiences are able to sit on and sprawl on and walk on and around the work. Leo and Linda will now share a 4-minute video that documents the installation in North Carolina. They'll discuss the project, questions of site specificity, and then we'll see the museum exhibition and finally take your questions. So we'll start now with the video.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the North Carolina Museum of Art. And for those of you who've never been to the museum, I'm hoping that video gave you a sense of how unique our campus is. We sit on 164 acres, and the museum has been here since the early 80s, but we really started developing the museum park about 10 years ago. And we have slowly been adding art, including permanent commissions, long-term loans, and very temporary works, a couple days or a couple months or maybe a year. And the park consists of rolling meadows, wooded areas, a stream, and about 3 miles of trails, biking and hiking trails. So when Madison Square Park approached us and asked us if we'd be interested in having Leo's project, City in the Grass, travel here, we were thrilled because we really thought it would be the perfect project for our park. And I would say one thing it has done is inspire us to do a new series of projects where we connect projects inside the museum with projects outside of the museum. So really like a two-part indoor-outdoor exhibition. And Leo is our first project like this. So when we decided to bring City in the Grass here, we decided we would also do a solo exhibition of Leo's work. And today we'll be able to give you a sneak peek of that exhibition. We're still installing it, so it'll be very much a behind the scenes tour, but I think you'll really enjoy it. So we installed City in the Grass, and I'm gonna walk around a little bit so you can see the full expanse of it. But we installed it in January, opened it to the public in February, and the original plan was Leo's indoor show would open the beginning of April. So of course, our museum shut down in mid-March like everyone else, and we're still closed. We hope we're gonna open sometime this fall. But in the meantime, people have been able to enjoy City in the Grass. So we've kept the museum park open this entire time, and it has been a huge amenity for our community. And it's been a way to kind of take the museum outside. And I would say our attendance in the park skyrocketed over the last few months, especially in the spring when there were several parks in the area that closed down due to the pandemic. We were able to stay open. And I think you can see there's people out here every day, all day long. So for me as a curator, context is something I think about a lot with a work of art. I think about when I'm inside the museum and I move a painting or a sculpture to another gallery, I see how it changes. I see how the location changes your perspective of the work. I see how it has conversations with other works around it. And that transforms the way you look at it. And for me, it's totally fascinating to see that happen with an outdoor work of art. So as you know, Leo was commissioned to do this piece for Madison Square Park, which is in the middle of New York City. And I think of it as kind of a pocket park, like this intimate park, but it's surrounded by skyscrapers and urban traffic and just a really different feeling. And then you come to our museum and it sits in this big grass ellipse and it looks out over this amazing meadow with other works of art and woods in the distance. And there are these rolling gardens with grasses and flowers. And in New York City, you can see a skyscraper you can see the Empire State Building. But here in North Carolina, instead of the Empire State Building, we have a smokestack that is the last remnant of a prison that used to occupy the museum grounds. So as I walk around, I think you'll get a view of the smokestack. And Leo, I'm ready to bring you into the conversation.
I'm just mesmerized. I'm looking, I'm letting everyone know that I actually wasn't there for the install because of the lockdown, but it's interesting to sort of note that having the piece having been framed by, you know, like something as monumental as the skyscrapers in New York, and then visually seeing it in its location where it's now far more serene. I mean, we got trees, and it's in the way the grass absolutely how it's affected the piece. I mean, it's buried actually in the grass. So when I say city in the grass, this is absolutely that very you know, metaphor is there. It's met. When it was in New York, I mean, you could actually see the carpet. I only see Linda walking in the grass, and I see these mounds out. It's in these towers, which interesting that when the towers were in New York, they absolutely reflected the Empire State Building. Here, they're stupas, and this is actually the original idea for the towers were stupas. And so to have them actually revert back to that because of the surroundings is it's really an experience. I mean, I'm looking at this and it's like, okay, wow, city in the grass.
I think the grass has taken over.
Absolutely. I mean, this is spectacular, and it's exactly what I had imagined would happen in Madison Park with Brooke and her lawnmower. They continue to sort of like shave it down, you know. But this is something. I mean, wow.
Do you think that having it in a more kind of rural landscape changes your intention behind it, or what people will get from it?
Well, you know, when you're working on these things in the studio, they're alive, and they're attempting to tell you where they need to go. When I create the towers, I mean, there are all of these, different connotations. I mean, we have the Wizard of Oz, we have Metropolis, we have King Kong climbing the Empire State Building. So all these things were in my head as I was working on the structures. So when it, you know, became, you know, like an absolute outdoor piece, no longer in the studio, and look at it, this is exactly what I had imagined. They would be so attracted, they would not pay attention to these "do not climb" signs, you know. And they're
of course not.
It needs to be on this. And I think that this is the chief draw of this piece is that you want to interact with it. In order to complete this piece, you interact with it, you know. And for me, that is an absolute, you know, like a gift that I'm receiving, because in the end, there's an energy that is being traded off between you and the public, and how they relate to this work, how they're either attracted to it or not attracted to it, like a magnet. If they're drawn to it and they need to climb it, in spite of signs saying "do not climb," that says, you know, all this in a nutshell. That this is an absolute. You know, like it completed itself.
Absolutely. And I think you've said before that you don't see this work as being completed until the public interacts with it. Absolutely.
So, I mean, this is a beautiful thing. I mean, in New York, we had tons of kids literally climbing the towers. And of course, if I was there, I would push them to do exactly that. You know, so I have many images and videos of kids climbing all the way up to the top, and create, you know, like mothers like trying to get them to sort of get down, you know. But I think that this is the need for the public to want to interact and want to touch, want to become a part of, and like I said, this absolutely completes the work.
Well, one thing we've talked a lot about is how the work is aging and deteriorating.
Not fast enough.
You're, exactly. So for me, it's interesting to look at your body of work where you are very consciously aging and deteriorating and manipulating the work to a point where people think it's made out of found materials or recycled objects. Mm. And here you're ceding all control. Mm-hmm. You're letting nature and other people transform the work.
Yeah,
that's a big difference.
No, absolutely. But there's this transformative state. We all go through it. I mean, like we age, and that being so much a part of my philosophy, I was hoping that this piece actually would have already started to show more wear and tear, because that is the nature of things. It's the nature of nature. So as I'm looking at, I would like to take, like an acid or an axe or a hammer and start to really take it to its next self, its next iteration of itself. So, watching it only very slowly, I think I made it too well. So in effect, I think that it's an absolute necessity for this thing to go through the cycles of life. It's been born, it's lived, it's living, and now it needs to sort of be on its way to its next iteration of self.
Right. These like universal cycles of birth, death, and regeneration that I think appear in all of your works.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, I know once I've gotten this thing in my hands, I would assist it to be on its way, to achieving that.
So do you think it will have another life?
Absolutely.
After it goes to Mississippi?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing sacred. when it comes to my process, is that nothing is sacred, and it's almost like layering, like a life with experiences. Just imagine that, so if you're living a life, you're absolutely collecting experiences. So these works absolutely have to go in that very same, through that very same process in order to find itself. And even when I'm no longer here, they will continue to sort of like hopefully bring on other iterations of itself.
Absolutely. So one thing I've also thought a lot about this work is that it has a lot of firsts for you.
Yeah.
So your first outdoor sculpture,
color.
Your first work with color,
yeah.
Your first work with a descriptive title instead of a number. You want to talk a little bit about those?
Well, the title comes actually is my great love for Brooke. She when she heard that I had a working title, which was City in the Grass, in the studio, working in the studio, all things they're not numbered. They actually do have working titles, so that we have an idea of what I'm talking about when I'm pointing at this or that. So this one became City in the Grass while it was in the studio. And I think Brooke really got a hold of that and then never let it go. So she kept repeating it until it became a reality, So, so I mean, a poetic, I think, realization of how things are born. They kind of happen organically around me anyway. So that taking on that title was one. Color is the other experience that, I mean, in my travels, and the things that I've seen from the ruins in Cuba to China and working with porcelain, there was another sort of suggestion that Brooke might not even have was aware that she was making, which was while I was going back and forth for like 4 years to China to work with these artisans with porcelain and working in a place called Jingajin, which is like ground zero for porcelain. And so, I was working with color, and she was wondering whether or not color was going to become a part of the piece that we were already sort of like working through, which was this idea of a city in the grass. And so it was going to be, mostly all of these behind you, you see all these little, building structures, which are the towers, under the towers, that is the city. And the piece was going to be pretty much all of that type of action all throughout. Undulating sort of city in the grass. Once, I started bringing in color from my experiences in China, it was just, I allowed that, avenue to open up. And I accepted the idea that color could be a part of this work. And so in the end, yeah, it was deeply affected by my experiences. As I was going through it, the work was changing over the time that we were sort of, trying to figure out what this piece really was going to become. Color was already becoming a part of my language. So it completely changed the original idea for the work. And color is really what it's all about now. I mean, like, I don't think I've done anything as colorful as this, and I don't.
Crazy.
Yeah, but it's definitely introduced color in a real heart, and absolutely sort of like, I am here, I exist, and color is now part of the language.
Linda Linda and Leonardo, there's so many questions coming in the chat that I think if we can show the film now of your indoor exhibition, and if you would both just talk over that and sort of lead us through, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'm just getting myself set up in front of the computer.
Okay, great.
So as I mentioned, we decided to do a solo show of Leo's work inside the museum, and we are still in the process of installing it. So this video is giving you behind the scenes before we finish it. Our hope is that it will open in September, later this fall, and be on view through the end of the year. So I hope this will get you to come and see it when we can open the museum. And it includes 18 works that really spanned 3 decades of Leo's career. So the earliest work is from 1988 and the most recent from 2019. And I'd say the majority of the works are from the last 5 years. But there are a few key pieces from early in Leo's career that we really wanted to include so you could kind of see the evolution of his work and how these different pieces have influenced each other and ideas that kind of come up over and over again. And one thing I would say is, Leo, I think of you as someone who always pushes your creative comfort zone, that you are rarely satisfied with kind of continuing in a particular vein, like the outdoor work that really pushed you. And why don't you talk about the work we like to call tree?
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I've never had the opportunity to see this thing in the way that you guys have seen it, which is fully in the round. It was always laying in the studio for almost like 10 years up in a corner. It was an idea that had not necessarily had enough space to be fully realized. So looking at it, actually on the video screen, it's a little bit disconcerting because you guys have had a first hit with this, and I have not had that yet. And it's like, and I'm hoping that I can get out and see the piece, but it's a monster. And I always imagined that it was going to be a monster, but in fact, as you look at it up against the other works, it's just this huge black anchor. And it's how I would have choreographed finishing it. I think you guys did a wonderful job in realizing it, absolutely without me being there. But it's just a little bit of a shock.
Well, one thing I love about this show, which I think you can see as we walk through the galleries, is the range of materials that you're using. So right now we're in front of the cotton piece.
Oh my God. I get exhausted just looking at them because it's just this, I mean, I should have stopped. maybe a cotton, rust, maybe, the color now has become the thing. So I think as I'm getting older, I'm wondering whether or not I'm going to sort of settle. And this, but I'm sneaking suspicion that probably just won't happen. I'm just going to drop dead. I'm just going to drop dead, still asking questions and still trying to push forward. But it's, look at that. That is crazy.
Let's talk about this.
That kind of intercepted, that piece, the explosion, we call it, like in the studio, it's called an explosion. These things are numbered for a reason. I mean, it allows the viewer to have a full-on experience without having to sort of like call on a title to sort of have a hint at what I might have been thinking about. In the studio, it was the working title was The Explosion, so that we knew what the target was. But like in the end, it's what you feel, what you're taking in. You should have a full-on experience without me having to hold your hand. So as I'm looking at this, how you guys finished the construction of this without me, it's like there's no reason for me to do any more installs. Everything's going to be done online.
So just so everyone knows, we installed this show exactly the way we're doing this presentation.
Yep.
So we had Leo on a big monitor and we just wheeled him around the gallery. He told us what to do.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I could do it in bed. This is something. I mean, really, look at that. And the color, obviously still, color's in effect. There's no way of denying it now. So even the works that are happening right now for future endeavors have, color is so much a part of the language now.
And what about this piece?
That's number 8, the mother to all of my works. You can see the dead birds. I mean, I didn't kill them, but in the end, I've learned how to do some taxidermy when I was at Cooper Union, and this piece just incorporates all the things that I learned. In the end, I didn't have to use dead carcasses, to sort of get an emotional response. I mean, all the works now have in a lot of ways have number 8 in them without, the sensational aspects or the sensational parts. That's like one of the first Rust works. Rust in a box. Yeah.
Rust in a box. Rust that you made.
Yes. I have to go through the whole process. So, I mean, when I visited these students some time ago, they were showing me how they were able to sort of antique things with antiquing solutions. And I was like, boy, you mean there was an easier way to do this? Because I had no idea that you could actually antique things with, certain patinas and acids and chemicals. And, I do it the old fashioned way, which is go through the whole process, become the weather, right? So become the weather, and you need to still go through the whole process of the aging process that way.
Yeah, I love that description of you as the weather. So you can see we're doing kind of a final walkthrough of the show. And I hope that this has given you an idea of what the exhibition is like. It is really phenomenal to see all of these works together. And I really hope that you will all be able to come here and see it in person, including Leo.
Yes.
Before the end of the year.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
And we'll also have a beautiful catalog that will document the show and includes a wonderful essay by Brooke. So I think we've reached the end of the gallery tour, and we could open it up for questions if Brooke would like to start that.
Oh my gosh, Leonardo and Linda, congratulations. That is an extraordinary exhibition. We all have to go to see it. It's a tour of your work across the decades, Leonardo. It's really, really strong. And I think that people on this program today are learning a lot about your work, from seeing the indoor work and the outdoor work. I'm going to read off some questions that people have been asking. John Monty, who is an artist, asked, I wonder how Leonardo thinks about his intended degrading of his city piece metaphorically in relation to New York City and other urban centers in COVID times being stressed socially, economically, and the like.
You know, interesting enough that because of the materials and the direction that the work takes, depending on what's going on at the time, it sort of becomes that moment. Interesting, you know, tumultuous times that we're going through right now. Here it is, you know, like I'm creating explosions and disintegrating cities. You know, during 9/11, I mean, we had the same kind of thing when I did the work at the Hirshhorn, you know, number 175, I believe it was. And like, it was, you know, like everyone's take on it was, you know, that it was about that. Katrina, the same thing. I mean, so it would seem that, you know, the work morphs into moments, you know, historic moments very easily without my intending, you know, because I'm not a psychic. I can't really predict these things, you know, like, but in the end, they are heartfelt. So in the end, it's like, you know, I allow the work to grab me, take me by the nose and pull me along. So it's ahead of me. And in that way, I think that we all are, you know, are given a lesson. You know, I don't have the answers. I'm kind of following just like you guys, you know.
Nice, thank you. Okay, hold on. Louise Strawbridge has asked, what is the media of the stupas? This is in the City in the Grass piece. And what is the significance to your using stupas?
Well, you know, the spiritual connotations absolutely are there. Being reliquary, stupas are spiritual towers. Though, you know, of course, once it was laid in the in Madison Park, the center of the park, it reflected immediately the Empire State Building. So it's the Empire State Building, the stupa. So this is an interesting sort of architectural or structural question in terms of what is the meaning behind certain shapes. And I think that, like, you know, this being an iconic shape in itself, depending on where it is, it becomes. So here it is, as we were looking at it in the park, you know, absolutely framed by the serene sort of you know, situation around it. It's an absolutely a stupa. I mean, you put it in New York, it becomes the Empire State Building. Absolutely becomes the, you know, the structures around it. So again, you know how these works have the ability to sort of become or more. It's always even stupefying to me.
So Leonardo, I mean, when Linda took us on the tour of the work and talked it through, you're in a sense pushing away from site specificity. You're letting the work take on the site and new meaning in a different space and transforming it.
Well, that's in that whole idea of how I don't title the works. So it's already built into the philosophy. I mean, it tells you that it's how you're seeing it, how you're experiencing it. You don't necessarily have to go through me in order to sort of find meaning in the work. It's alive and it will communicate with you. And a lot of times it'll grab you and force you to deal with it. So I don't think that it's necessary for me to sort of like point out, you know, like that you need to sort of like at this be cued in on like what this is about. I'm not going to set up cues for you, and it's not necessary, because if the work if it's about itself, then it's going to allow you to sort of take a trip with it, you know, and you will indeed become it.
Okay. So Dee Dee Young Our friend Dee Dee has asked, at the North Carolina Museum of Art, it appears to have emerged like an ancient city. Did you expect it, Leonardo, to look so much like a ruin?
Well, I mean, that is embedded in the philosophy, but the grass is a visual that I could only imagine. Now I can actually see it, and how nature can sort of like take over a city. If we didn't, sort of like continue to sort of like trim it, and continue to sort of like tame the natural aspects around it. Look at that. I mean, look how that thing is embedded, and it's like a
yeah.
That is incredible. I mean, I just love that. And it's like, and if we didn't do anything, it would be completely engulfed by, nature. And I think that, if the work is about the nature of nature, then
Nice.
then it should be allowed to sort of to be completely involved and become, that. And it is. I mean, it's. I have to get out and see this. This is something. Wow. My goodness. Thank you for that video. I mean, this. I'm looking at this, and it's like on cue. You guys are like showing me, and I also saw people, chomping at the bit to climb on the piece. And I guess those signs. They're not. If you guys weren't there, believe me, they would not obey those signs. They would be on the piece.
Leonardo, Sarah Stein-Sapir is asking if you have plans for future public art projects and how this work will influence your ongoing interest in doing outdoor work.
Well, the one thing I did learn about doing outdoor works, at least in terms of how it relates to how I would like to continue, the idea of having work completed by the public, by public interaction, I would like that to be a part of the philosophy. How that will happen in a piece that that is not meant for longevity, that's one thing I will have to sort of like tackle, because I think a lot of the draw to this work it's because it's still working within materials that I'm used to using, So, but like once you start going into bronze and materials that actually can, stay the test of time or be outside for indefinitely. I mean, these works are not meant to be outside indefinitely, and I think that allows for the warmth and the attraction of the work. How to now discover a material that will be in keeping with the philosophy of actually having the public interact and become the work. That's going to be the next puzzle to be resolved. But I would like to have that be a part of the next outdoor works or any future outdoor works that need to be completed by public interaction.
So you often talk about travel and the impact of travel on your work because you've traveled so extensively and lived in so many different places. Without our ability without travel right now, are you drawing on the well of experience over your lifetime for some of that visual support and
but it's mostly the fact that I've always been aware that there are two forms of travel, at least. There's the inward and the outward. Okay. So and the outward, yes, that's the physical one, where you're taking in things, you're taking in information, not only through your eyes, but through your pores. But I think that the idea inevitably, if you learn how to travel inward, you can go in that direction indefinitely, So I've always been able to draw on that form of travel, inward travel. It's as big as your imagination. And being creative absolutely sort of fuels that, So I mean, drawing on past memories, on our conversations, all these things now become a part of or become material for the next iteration of works, So there's never a time where I'm not going to be able to draw from one or the other.
Got it.
We'll get back around to the physical, but right now it's about the inward.
Right. Linda, can you talk to us a bit about what happened in North Carolina at the start of the pandemic, and when you had to close down the sculpture park because your citizens were, other parks in the area were closed, and how did that impact the work in City in the Grass?
I would say that we got a huge jump in attendance. So we never closed the park. We closed the museum the middle of March, and I haven't seen the numbers lately, but I know it was a significant jump, especially like April, May. And at some point in that time period, a lot of the other parks closed for a month or 2 months, and that spiked the attendance even further.
Okay. I'm just going to more of the questions here. A question is, are you considering grass as a material now, particularly after seeing how much it changes the work? And might you consider including specifications for the next iterations of City in the Grass?
Well, believe it or not, I have used grass in the past. My good friend Pamela Joyner has invited me out to her place in Sonoma. And there they have this lovely gold grass that actually, I think it starts a lot of the fires, you know, like the brush fires there. And so here I am on the highway, sort of like collecting all this grass so that I could build new works with that material. Only inspired by the fact that I, was in that location, and that was a material that was readily available. And of course, all the folks on the highway were always thanking me for actually cleaning up all the this grass that was a nuisance, But in the end, it just does invite other possibilities. But grass is something, yes, I am familiar with. Yeah.
Okay. Leonardo, when you see your work in the indoor exhibition over 3 decades, how does that impact your ongoing work?
Well, you're in order to move forward, you do need to sort of reach back. I don't necessarily have to call on it. It's already a part of my push forward. I'm carrying it on my back. I mean, I'm carrying my history. I'm carrying all the things, that I've gone through. I'm layered with all this information. So will tell you, that's why my materials change so often, is because, how do you sort of strike the right chord? I mean, if you use material as sort of like musical notes, then indeed you will sort of like strike chords, and you will be able to play, the right line of music at the right time, and that does sort of like reflect on the diversity of materials that I use. So coming from number 8, saying, okay, you're going to be using dead carcasses, in order to sort of create this work of art, is one thing, but then being able to do that without those sensational, materials, now you still need to be able to strike the same chord. So you're able to do that by diversifying, by understanding the weight of certain materials, the emotional weight of those materials, their historic weight, and that innately. It's not something that you need to sort of learn in the book. It's like it comes through the fact that you've been creating all this time, you've been collecting all this information. So it never really stops. It continues to feed itself. There's always this push forward, but that push forward is fueled obviously by your past. And it just continues sort of like, to move forward, to push forward. Yeah.
Right. Nice. Will you go to install in Mississippi?
I would love to. I mean, I would like to see, because looking at the video, it looks like the piece has gone through some, the color looks a little bit faded. It should become like a worn rug. You know, like if a rug was sitting out in the sun for a long period of time, I mean, yeah, the color is going to be affected. I mean, we all have that experience with the how, you know, ultraviolet like affects your furniture and like and so you know, that was a given, and I wanted that to happen. But there will be a point where I will need to sort of interject, and I will need to sort of like join in on the process of decay. But I, you know, based on the video, I can't really know what the truth is about the color of the piece. I know what it was originally, but I can only guess that it's faded, you know.
But it's very structurally sound because you made it so it so well.
But I think that I'm definitely gonna need to like take a mallet to it, you know, and beat it up, you know. And I can't wait for that.
Don't tell curators that.
I think they're already aware.
Linda and Leonardo, you've given us such incredible insight on the work today, on the transformation of City in the Grass from urban New York City to more rural North Carolina. We're so grateful for you. And Leonardo, I know you said that you don't have to go through me to find meaning in the work, but I think you guided us today with enormous insight, and that brings us all closer to the work. So thank you for participating today. And thank you everyone for watching this webinar with Leonardo and Linda Dougherty. And we'll all see you soon. Everyone is weighing in the chat. Leonardo saying how tremendous the work is and fantastic. And
thank you.
So you have a fan club in the Ecosphere.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm going.